Hello guys. So yeah, looks like the vote's been decided on. It will be the Battle of Bakhmut. I personally expected maybe a little more people to have interest in any other options, but I mean, I guess I should have predicted this would happen. So I thought it would be fun this time around to make some recordings about the map and how I start by creating it because there's not a lot of documentation on the map editing for this game. So it'll be fun. Play along, watch along. You can repeat what I do or whatever you want. I'm gonna start now. So the first thing we need to do, right? I've been taking a look at the area. Obviously, looks like this has gone back to the original location. Let me just fix that real quick. So this is the area we want to turn into a map. But of course, the challenge will be, first of all, what part of the area do we actually want to use? Gameplay wise and stuff like that. In my experience, the big issue with creating these maps is in Warno things can get kind of stalematey where there's basically like 3 or 4 points of contact, and if people are like, if the teams are even, they will just be fighting in that area and nothing else. So it's a bit of a waste to create an entire map to then only fight in a specific area, right? So for example, let me just get a screenshot of this. Let's just imagine this is our map, right? Um, so if we have these two, this is like our crap. So this is one of our respawn areas, and then do it in a second layer. Perfect. So this is one of our spawn areas. Let's say this is the blue 4. And then we've got a second spawn area. And that's our red 4. Okay, so what's gonna happen is we're gonna see everybody pretty much just do this, right? They're just gonna go, okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna go over there, that one goes there, that one goes there, right? And then what happens is you're just gonna have this like fucking clash over here, over here, over here, and pretty much nothing else happens unless one of the areas breaks, in which case we might see something like this, where they will maybe start putting pressure here, something like that. If you're lucky, you can do something like this. But especially in bigger team games, this is, this gets hard because there's going to be reinforcements coming in. You need to hold this area while this area is actually easier to hold. So if you want to actually properly flank, you will need to also push them back over here, which happens sometimes, but not always. And what we would preferably like to see is the entirety of the map being used. So in the in the previous map, what we did, we created spawn areas that you were able to capture, right? So that you could reinforce from there. So that there is sort of like an encirclement thing going on. I'm not really sure we want to do that again. We might. It will have to depend on whether or not it's actually worth it for balance sake. Because of course, if you're able to get to that point, you're just going to be able to put pressure on the enemy spawn area, and then the line of contact, let's say we put one of those sectors, one of those neutral sectors, let's say we put it over here. Did it again. I'm gonna do it like this. Yeah. It's gonna be smaller. You can have like 2, something like that. But of course, what happens if we do this is when you're able to spawn from here, the enemy is just gonna be fighting with the reinforcements coming here, and then instead of a front line being like this, instead of the, yeah, I'm struggling here. Alright, there we go. Just gonna use some green. Instead of the front line being like this, it's gonna be something like this, right? And then you're able to take it over on the other side, maybe. Then it will be something like this. It could work. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. So that's the first thing, right? We're gonna need to properly think of what are the different situations, what's the scope of the map. This is also very important, right? So do we want to have it just include the city itself, or do we want to zoom out a lot more? I mean, it depends as well, obviously, on the restrictions for what we want to build, the length and so on. So for example, for Avdiivka we created a 4x3 area. So 4x3 area vaguely is the equivalent of what we placed as the map. I actually have it over here still open. So this is the playable area in the game, and that's the height map that we used. I keep saying we, but it's just mostly me actually. I don't know why I'm saying that. So for this, we counted, you know, the distances in game, and we compared them to real life, and it's something like, I need to check again actually. All right, you know what? We can do that. That's not a problem. Oops. Okay, so here we have our map. Right. So the thing is, this little distance displayer is not really useful, except for, you know, what it's showing, which is average ranges for units. But you can also use the measurement tool, and the measurement tool goes like this. I can right click if I can. Right, we're gonna go all the way over here, and it says 9,000 meters. And then if you look in the bottom, there's also the coordinates, which corresponds with the distance as well. So this map supposedly is 12 by 9 kilometers. However, when we go in game and we're testing out the ranges in game, it actually shows the double of that. So something like that at least. So, you know, when you have like an artillery piece or something, I hear you thinking, oh, 12 kilometers in distance, that's not too long. Most artillery pieces can reach that, right? Well, no. In fact, most can't even get through half of the map. So the ranges are actually doubled in game, or halved, I suppose. Right? So if I go over here, it's like the middle of the map, and go all the way back here, it's 4,800 meters. It's actually 9,000 meters in game. That's what I'm trying to say. So we need to take that into account when we're measuring these distances. It's not what it says in the map editor, but it kind of is. Now, how did I exactly do that last time? I'm not quite sure anymore. I think I started by eyeballing it a little bit. You can, you know, kind of go from the satellite imagery that we overlay. So, for example, if I turn on here, if I turn on a background image, so I can, let's see, what did I use? I think I need to select it inside of the game again. Sat map. Here we go. So this is the map that was used. And if you look, let's say over here, if I turn on the opacity, you can see the houses they're a bit bigger, right? But there's not much of a difference. So yeah, I'm not really sure on the scale that we used. Of course, not every building is equivalent of what it's actually in the game. You know, like in real life, for example, here's a farm, right? I'm not gonna build the exact farm, I'm just gonna add a farm. So this one is bigger. But as you can see, the dimensions are almost identical. You know, okay, this one is a bit longer, but so I think we got the scale down quite well, in fact, for most things. So that just means finding this scale again for the next map and then going from there. Alright, let's start by trying to do that. So our first objective here, right, is we need to get the playable area, and then we need, after that, we need to get the height map for the playable area. We need to make sure these two will stay in sync. I have like, you know, I'll need to make sure the height map and the satellite imagery that I'll be using are the same, that their scale is the same, all that stuff. Otherwise, when you start going to the edges, it's gonna get really hard. And then I've got this little editor here, which I'm using. It's called Gaia, which is a height mapping tool that it's a lot more powerful than I'm using it for. But I'm using it basically to take the height map file and edit it so it actually looks good in the game. So I've got a little tool over here. It's called the Tangram Height Mapper, and this tool allows you to go to any place in the world and get height maps from there. The resolutions aren't the greatest, but they're not bad either. When I do this, I'll need to turn off these two things, but for now I've got them turned on so I can actually properly see what I'm going to be looking at. Otherwise it's really hard to know. The first thing you should notice, by the way, when looking at this, is that Bakhmut is located in a crevasse, right? So this is the river, the Bakhmutska, or what's it called, right? And it flows from there to here, or from here to there, I'm not quite sure. But the entire village, or town, or city even, is actually located in this valley with all the cliff sides around it. Now, of course, the heights you see here are very pronounced. That's because the heights are relative, right? So if I turn off auto exposure, well, okay, let's put it this way. So, for example, I put the minimum elevation on 0 meters, so that's sea level, right? And then I can put this on, let's say, height of a small mountain, 500, 600 meters, something like that. And then I guess you can see that the scales aren't that bad, right? So, I mean, these are just small elevations. But the point still stands. There's a height difference. On the right side, it's a bit lower than on the left side, but the interesting part is that everything kind of flows into the city. So we're gonna see heights on either side, and then when people go to the middle, it's gonna lower off. So that'll make firing certain ATGMs or reconnaissance units, that'll make them very strong if they are able to keep a proper position outside of the city to look over to the other side. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Another thing of note, so I do need to study up a bit more on the whole Bakhmut situation. But the area we want to have as a playable area, it's going to be the city, and then we will need at least some of the towns surrounding them on the north and southern side. They also need to be playable. Preferably, I'd like to have this here, right? We've got the salt mine and Soledar, that kind of stuff. But then again, it is so far away, I'm not sure if that's going to be doable. We'll definitely have this, though. And on this side, we've got Opitne, Klishivka, that should be doable. But that's going to be probably the range. I think that's doable. Otherwise, our relative distances are going to get so hard that the map needs to be a lot bigger, or I need to start shrinking stuff down. Which is possible, but it's going to be more work, and it'll need, it'll require more interpretation of the map instead of actually properly building it as it is. So yeah. Okay, so this here, via Google Earth Pro, I can actually get a proper export of a Google map instead of on Google Maps, which I can't really get a file from. Let me see how I do that again, because I forgot. It's gonna be here somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go, save image. Yeah, there we go. So I'm now able to get a bunch of stuff. So do we want the legends? No, we don't. Do we want titles and description? No, we don't. Do we want a scale? Not really. Do we want a compass? No, everything's up north as it should be. Let's go for the highest resolution we can. And then we need to make sure we've got everything in vision that we actually want in our map. So we've got Klishivka over here. And then of course the scale, that's also a challenge. So if I zoom out too much, we're gonna lose a lot of fidelity in the regions on the map. So this is a bit trial and error, of course. So maybe we can do it like this. So Solidar is still on the map, but we will just not have the connecting road. That'll be good. That'll be good. I've got a lot of area on the left and the right side here, but the idea for this map, I think, is going to be a 3x3, so just a rectangle. So not everything you see here will be playable. Alright, let's try and save the image. So I made a new folder over here, which we will be using. There we go. What did I call it again? I'm just gonna use the same name, it's easiest. Oh, it's not over here. Sat map. Is it a... Oh, it's a PNG, so I'll need to convert it. There we go. So now it's exporting. For this one as well, we've got some stuff on the right side here. I can put the render multiplier up to 8, but in my experience that doesn't really do that much. So I think I will keep it on 6, which is already pretty good. Okay, it's done exporting now. Let's try and open that up in our paint.net application. Open image. There we go. So this is a bit trippy over here, but I mean it's fine. It's not a problem. So how is the fidelity looking? That's alright. I'm not sure if it was this bad in the first one. Maybe I zoomed out a bit too much. We'll have to maybe lower the fidelity a little bit. The zoom. So how's this looking? Compare this to the other previous version. So this is a block of houses. Let's get an equivalent block of houses over here. So how's that? Is that pretty much the same? Avdiivka, got some shitty roads. It's pretty shitty as well. Alright, maybe it's the same. See, this is a bit of a waste. You know, if I had some proper mapping software, I'm not sure how, but I spent a lot of time on it the last time around to actually get like more high fidelity maps when you're zooming in. But yeah, I mean, unless you're gonna be zooming in individual parts and then like pasting them together, this is the best you'll get with like one export. But I mean, it's good enough. If I really need more details, I can always just go back to Google Maps, you know. This is fine. Okay, so now we need a square. A rectangle, excuse me. So something like this. If we do it like this, Solidar is not entirely on the border of the map. However, like this we also miss... Well, I mean, we're definitely not gonna get to Chasivyar either way. Maybe I'm gonna do just a little bit more. Get more of those edges on the left side. So we've got some roads coming in here. We've got the big road over here, some extra roads here. There's a highway crossing from here to here. That's actually pretty neat for this. Okay, I think we'll do it like this. So there we go. It's not a good aspect ratio. We've got uneven numbers. However, it's alright. There we go. Let's get some grid lines in here. No, that's not gonna do it. Just need my rulers to actually give me... It's not very readable. Okay. So if we've got the distance of 5,000 pixels on either side, and the center is something like 5,000. Yeah, something like this. That means if the distances are equal, the center of the city is now more to the bottom left. So we'll have to move it up a bit. There's no other way. So let's do that again. Oh, I see. Didn't actually include any more. Okay, that's fine, but we will have to move this up a bit. So we'll just have to do it like this. Let's try that again. That's better, right? Got it more in the center. I mean, it doesn't have to be entirely geographically centered or whatever. You know, it can be a bit more to the bottom or to the top. Yeah, but this pretty much completely makes Solidar out of the picture as a combat area. The only thing that's possible is, you know, maybe I could make a map that's focused on Solidar, but that'll definitely be a 1v1. Even then, it's gonna be tight. Yeah, I think you can do it though. You can have the Russians spawning here, and then we'll make the road run like this, so you can actually use it. Okay. So let's save our satellite map. Okay. Closing on up. That's fine. Don't need that. Don't need that. We will need that. This is okay. I mean, I guess we can just recreate this, right? So I'll do that away, and then we can just do that again. Okay. Alright. The next step is getting the height map. So we will need to make sure that the height map has everything that the original map has. It needs to be a proper fidelity. So, you know, these are all challenges. So I'll just need to export a proper height map, and then I will lay this over the paint.net map we just created, and then we can, you know, kind of like bumble it together and see how it fits. And then, you know, if it's fine, then we can go with it. Otherwise we might have to start over here. So we've got, I think this is Solidar. It's very hard to read Cyrillic if you're a filthy Western European. So we're at this zoom level, and yeah, so this runs like that, and then it ends, so we don't actually need that. It's gonna be more like this, zoomed in, and in the bottom we've got Opitne, which is here, Klishivka, which is here. Okay, I need maybe a little more leeway on the zoom levels there, good man. Let's change it like this. Oh, that's all gone. Okay. Klishivka. Don't need Andrivka. Yeah, don't do that, please. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is fine. We can work with this. Let's try it out, huh? So now I need to turn off everything, otherwise that gets exported as well. Don't want that. And it's done. My god, man. Go back to my working folder. Height map tests. Height map 1. That's... It's fine. Okay. Let me just drag that to my paint.net. So here it is. And now we can start by okay, I need a second layer. Keep canvas size. I'm sorry you can't see everything. Changing the layer opacity. It's just a restriction on how I configured the display on OBS. Right, so this is eyeball territory right here. It's really bad. The advantage for the other one was I had like a lot of fields that were actually showing up on the height maps. But this one doesn't really have that, so I'll need to look at the roads. That could be it. Something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's like a road running over here. I've got the main roads running. So 2. Oh yeah, that's gonna be it. It's gonna be like that, and then I just need to scale it down more. Yes. Right, we've got another landmark over here. This is something industrial or something we can pivot our entire height map on. So if I make sure I've got this little ball mapped on the proper area, then I can also use that as an anchor. Alright. Good enough. I'm gonna see what I can do with this. So we're gonna save this as a PDN file. This is my file that I can edit afterwards, right? If we want to make changes to the height map, I can still have this, which gives the proper view. And then I will, now that I've got this selected, I can paste from here, go to the next, and this is the height map, the actual height map that we're going to use, if it works. So I'm going to save that one as well, height map. What's it called again? Just heightmap.png. Okay. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna save it like that. Now, the next step. We're going to open up our lovely Gaia tool. And we will select this height map. Now, as you can see, it looks nothing like what it should, right? This is way too overpronounced. But this is also a part where I have to do some eyeballing. Basically, first of all, I've got these little things here, and they will adjust the shape so the heights are remapped to be a lot less intense. So basically, that's what I'm doing here. This one is meant for something else. Basically, something that I've noticed in the Warno engine is the height maps from this tool are like not strongly enough. So when you put them in the Warno map editor, the height is almost nothing, whereas in this tool it is something. So I've got this version over here, which is for me to actually understand what I'm looking at and what it's gonna look like. And this one is for the Warno game itself, where it will then look properly. This just was a lot of trial and error. There's not really anything more I can say about it. So basically I will show you this version right now, because that's actually the version that we're properly, you know, that properly looks like what it should look. I'm also gonna increase my resolution because we need more fidelity, because it's a big map. As you can see here, there's all these weird visual artifacts. So this is also something we need to take care of. Otherwise, if we don't fix this, you're gonna have like Minecraft cubes in the game. It looks really funky. So that's also something I'm doing. This next step is called denoise. And it's running, I think. Yeah. So denoise basically will solve that problem. It's also solving other problems, like the roads, for example, being a bit too overpronounced. You can see them here a bit still, but that's fine, because obviously you want your highways, right, to be on a small elevation, that kind of stuff. This, for example, is part of the industrial site we were looking at earlier, I think. Same thing here. This is the industrial site from, what's it called again, from Solidar, right? So these things look fine, I think. I can imagine this actually is what it looks like if we're looking at the map here. Oh crap. No. That's, yeah, no, okay, I think it's fine. Yeah, so there is this like, okay, so we've got a bit of a wedge and then a slope, and then it heightens again. So what is this then, like a sandstone quarry, something like that? I don't know. Anyway, that's what those little bulges are. This is the main side of the city. And like I said, as you can see, everything's gonna kind of come down in the middle here, because this is where your river flows. It's a small river. And then you've got heights on either side. This one has a bit more elevation. I'm not sure how we will fix that on balance. Maybe there's more forests here? Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to see. I mean, these maps are never going to be entirely balanced. That's just a fact. If you want to do like a proper balanced game, then you need to design your map around that instead of actual areas. Or you have to make some massive changes. I don't want to do that. I want to make it proper. This here, I'll show you anyways, but we're not going to use this. Is it's like something I used to add the elevation on Avdiivka, but I guess it's not working. So it's like basically with the draw tool you can make something yourself, like a physical artifact or whatever, and then you can add it to your map like this. So, but we're not doing that because we don't need that right now. So I'm just gonna, I think, I wanna say I wanna disable them, but maybe I'll just delete them. This here, it's not going to do much because that's just used to add the elevation from the previous step, but I'll let it stand because there's no difference. It's not going to change anything. So this version is what we will actually export, and let me just check on how I do that again, because I forgot. Tools, build and export. I think that's it. No, not at 1024. What did I do with Avdiivka? Built it in 1K? I'm not sure about that. I think this is probably from an update I did or something. Yeah, by the way, here's the height map for Avdiivka. As you can see, there's like these elevations here. That's from the farmlands, right? Because the map has these big ass farm fields on the left side. And in between them, you've got forests, right? Tree lines. But they're not like bocages as in France or something. These are massive, but they still have an elevation difference. So that's what you're seeing here, which I found to be very funny and interesting. Anyways, I guess I will try and export this in 4K like we're doing with the rendering. If it's giving issues, then I suppose we will have to take less. What did I do with the height map here? Let's open it in Paint. Paint.net. This is 8000 by 5000. Now, see, this is in 8K, so I'm doing this one in 8K as well. Alright, there we go. So it's set to 8K, and then I will build and export. Start build. Now it's gonna run, generate the file. And then I'll open it. Build location over here. Oops, that's not. There we go. So it should appear in this here folder. And also in the latest folder, I think. So yeah, exactly. So it's gonna be like that. I had some trouble with the Avdiivka generation for Gaia, because Gaia works only with rectangles. So basically you had to cut it down and remove the other parts, otherwise you would have, well, a rectangular height map for your non, well, I'm saying rectangle, I mean square. So basically you'd have a rectangular height map for a squared map. No, a squared height map for a rectangular map. Right. So here it is. This is our new height map. As you can see, the heights are a lot less pronounced now, as it should be. So that's what that did. So now that we copy this, we'll copy it over here as well. And then we're done with this part. So that was it. That's how we create our height map. Now the next part is we have to actually get it running in a game, which requires us to go in the game and then start by making a new map. So let me check, how did I do the naming convention again, right? Yeah, 4 by 3, so it's gonna be 3 by 3 underscore Bakhmut. And this obviously has to then be 3 by 3. It's possible it's gonna have to be a 4 by 4, by the way. I'm not sure. I think it's gonna be a 3 by 3, but maybe we determine that the map's actually too small and then I'll have to correct that. Anyways, these things, I mean, I don't really change this. It's fine. Same thing here, don't change that. This you can change at any time. So I think I'll leave this at Cyrus now. And I do not want to save. There we go. That's it. Now we have a map. One problem. You can't actually see the map. That's because we need to generate LODs first and all that kind of fun stuff. That's what they call baking, apparently. So I have to begin by turning off my game. And then we're gonna go in here. This is our Avdiivka map, which is not what we need, but we need the same folder. And then go up one level. Oh, that's not good. Can't I just... Yes. There we go. Here's the new map level thingamabob. So we've got that. We've got our height map. Put that in here. Change the name. And I will also add the satellite map just for convenience. And then on the next part we have to go to our game, and then there's this little folder called tools, and this is what we need. So I'm gonna copy this one, open it up again, and then change what's in here so that the map name, which you can see over here, is changed to the right map. Normally you just run the map baking, right, this, but then you have to keep giving the name for the map, which I don't want to do every time, so I will not. 3 by 3 underscore Bakhmut. There we go. Let me change that real quick. I actually forgot to add a VS Code panel to my presentation, so I will have to do that now. But I changed it already, so I will start this and hopefully there's no error. Boom! Here we go, isn't it beautiful? Now I just need to configure this so everything goes according to plan. There we go. So now it's working. Alright. Next time I need to change something in the code, which will happen periodically, then I automatically have what I need. Okay. Opening up the map editor again. Here we go. And look at that, we've got our beautiful height map. Just have to get our bearings. And of course we need to check if this is actually in fact the size we want, you know, for the elevations and so on. Let me start by adding the satellite map, which is here. And then we've got our bearings. Just double check if this looks fine. See, this is it's not perfect, is it? There's a big gap. That's gonna be too much. I also am thinking the elevations are maybe not strong enough. Looking at this map right now, it's a bit weak. For example, if we're over here, this should be one of the higher points on the map. And yes, I can see a little bit, but I should be seeing something like this, I think. So I'd like it to be a bit rougher. Okay. So we repeat the process. We go to our Gaia tool over here, and we will change the height remap value. And we can start by putting it on 0.15, which would
than it is right now. This one looks fine. So ideally what this looks like is what the other one should look like. And probably the reason it doesn't look like it is because I changed the part where we add extra stuff. This is water, which is why it looks kind of flat, I think. Alright, let's try and export the Heightmap file again. This isn't a hard step, we just wait for it to generate. You know, I changed one parameter. So we wait for it to generate, we copy the file from here to here, we change the name, and then we run our map baking again. That's a wrap. You can see the difference, right? Everything's a bit wider now. Whiter. There we go, and then we have to launch our baking. The baking process is actually the thing that takes the longest in this entire map creation thingamabob. At the start, if the map is quite small and there's nothing on it, it goes pretty quickly, but as soon as you start adding stuff, it's gonna, you know, take longer. And the more stuff you add, the longer it takes, especially stuff like terrain, right? So adding farm fields, adding that kind of like the ground textures, I feel like those really increase the load time for your height map, for the baking, which is fine. It's just a fact of working with the tool. I think the way that they do it, it could probably be improved. Probably easier to have something that just runs in the background when you finish building the map, instead of needing to use it while you're in the map editor. But it improves performance. You don't actually need to run the baking every time you're changing something in the map, but when you're zoomed out, you won't see the LODs for the things you added. So after a while, if you're working on the map for an hour or two, you've added a bunch of stuff. When you're then looking at the map from far, you can't really see what you've built. So that's when you have to start running another baking. Okay, the baking's done again. That means we can start up our game. Right. That looks better, I think. This is a lot of trial and error, let's be honest. You need to just see how it looks. If you want to change something, and then do it and see if that looks better. It only really starts to take shape when you're actually building the map. But of course, when that's happened, it's a bit too late to start adding stuff. What's this? Oh, it's a tree. Hmm. I think if we add more than this, the terrain is gonna start looking really rough. And it's not gonna be very playable. Maybe I even tone it down a bit more. Because this right here you don't want. It looks kind of ugly. It also messes with the line of sight, right? If you put a unit over here, they're not gonna see what's over here. The base game doesn't really use these smooth elevations a lot. They just have like layers where they put everything on one level and then it goes to the next level. But I don't want to do that. I mean, it's fine. I think maybe we're just gonna go with this one. Yeah. It looks quite natural. Looking at it from this angle. I can imagine this. See, here's the highway road again. You can see it, but when you zoom in, it's not really there. So it's like a visual artifact, but it's not really that big of a deal. Some parts are a bit elevated, but it's gonna look fine in the map. This is one of those, yeah, industrial mountains, hills, whatever. Alright. Now that we're done with that, we're pretty much ready to go on to the next phase, which is painting the map's terrain. In my opinion, it's easier to just do one thing in the entirety of the map and then move on to the next thing. Right, so for example, if we start by adding all the roads and then we link up all the roads first, and then after we've built the roads, we can start by adding fields. After we've added fields, we can add forests. After we added forests, we add well, that's pretty much it. Then we add everything else. I mean, at that point, it's just gonna be like a free-for-all. You start working on one village, then on the next one, you know, that kind of stuff. There's also some pre-production, if as it were. For example, right, I've got these trenches that I really like, which you might have already seen before. And these look really neat. And I would like to think of other stuff that I could add that looks kind of like this. Right, so these are all garrisonable. I've also got some houses. For example, this is one of my housing districts. Right, you've got a little road, you got some parking areas, there's a bunch of houses, some garage boxes, and this then counts as one district. So that means this is the equivalent of one garrisonable building. I've got a second district, this one's a bit smaller. And then this one is used in more urban settings. This is like an amalgamation of a bunch of different district buildings that come together and fill up an entire block, which is useful when you're working in a big city. The only downside to this one, it's kind of repetitive, right? So the trees change, this center building changes, these don't change. So maybe I want to make a new version of this one that looks a bit better. I'd also like to maybe get 1 or 2 different types of these houses. So I've got more variants. Maybe I will look at how the roads are placed, because for example, if we're going to Avdiivka, so the roads here, usually what I used was the multi-line road bitumen for the main roads, and then you've got these smaller bitumen small roads. The problem with them is they don't always look the best. This one's pretty intense, this one's pretty small, and when we go to certain maps from the game itself, let's say, I'm trying to think what it's called again. Is it Hesse? Well, this one has even larger roads. It's got Main Street V2 borders. That's pretty intense. Look at that. It's got like sidewalks and shit. Oh. These walls don't move though. Sidewalk, border, urban. See, it's only when you start looking at these maps that you realize how much work goes into specific things, right? You're just thinking, oh, they're gonna place a road and it's gonna be like, yeah, place a road there. But no, in fact, there's all these little thingamabobs. Some things are generic, right? They're automatically placed on a random pattern, and other things are manual. And for your own sanity, you don't want to do everything manually. So you have to work smart, not hard. But yeah, looking at the maps in game is very, very good for, you know, learning how to build your own map. Learning what's possible, learning what kind of buildings there are, what is used for what purpose. For example, here we've got filler grass burn 04, which looks like some, well, I'm not even sure what it is, because when I remove it, it doesn't change that much. Who knows? There's also a different one, which I'm gonna try and find. I forgot the name of. Stoneware? It's one of the newer ones, right? No, this is not the one I was talking about. This one actually uses the roads that I'm using. This is pretty impressive, by the way. The way they made this, it looks really neat. It's just balls to play here, though. I hate it. People always sneaking in the buildings. I think my favorite map visually is Kreide. It just has like a lot of very neat features. And as you can see, this is the signature Warno thing. Just make like a giant flat plane, and then another giant flat plane, another giant flat plane, and that makes it very balanced to understand the line of sight for your units. But it's not very realistic now, is it? What's it called again? I don't think I've played on this map before. It's one of the newer ones as well. Oh yeah, here. This is also one of them fancy town roads. Main Street V2 borders got me acting up. What's it called again? Maybe it's Cliff. I think it might be Cliff. Yeah, it's Cliff. Alright, so Cliff does something interesting with the roads on the outskirts. Look, you've got these here. Multi-line Main Street Urban 5V, which has these like split roads which are used, I guess, when one direction has more traffic than the other direction. And then if I recall correctly, they are also using one other different type of road that I don't really see much used. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Multi-line Main Street V2, which is like a smaller version of the double street one, right? You've got the road bitumen, which has stripes on the sides, and then you've got this one, which is like the same, but we want to have it look a bit less like a main road. So I'm thinking maybe I'll use this one as well in the next build. Yeah. Okay, that was it for the first session. You know, if you have any questions, let me know. This is more for fun for myself than anything else, so let me know if you think you had an interesting learning experience here about the use of these different tools, and I hope to see you the next time I'm on this platform.